The emergency alert pulsed through the crystalline walls of the Galactic Emergency Response Council's headquarters, its deep crimson hue reflecting off the concerned faces of the assembled alien dignitaries. Supreme Commander Vextal, a towering figure whose bioluminescent membrane flickered with stress patterns, stared at the holographic display with all four of their optical organs. Another failure, they announced, their translator struggling to convey the depth of disappointment in their harmonics. The Centauri mining operation, completely lost. 300 souls trapped in a methane pocket collapse. The assembled council members, representatives from the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, shifted uncomfortably in their environmental suits. This marked the seventh major disaster in as many cycles, and their best efforts had resulted in nothing but casualties and costly equipment losses. Counselor Zinra, a crystalline being from the silicon-based Petrova Collective, chimed in with a resonating tone. Our rescue protocols are failing. These frontier operations push beyond our safe operational parameters. Perhaps we should restrict colonial expansion to what? Interrupted first responder, Kalith, her gaseous form swirling agitatedly within her containment field. To Class 3 environments only. Abandon the resource-rich worlds that our civilizations depend upon. The Council cannot accept such regression. As the debate heated up, Junior Analyst Min Shai remained silent in her corner, her tentacles wrapped tightly around her data tablet. She'd spent the last 3 cycles studying an anomaly in the galactic database, a species that shouldn't exist. A species that, by all reasonable metrics, should have perished on their hellish homeworld millennia ago. Humans. When she finally spoke, her voice barely registered above the chamber's ambient hum. There might be another solution. The Council's attention shifted to her corner, most members noticing her presence for the first time. Supreme Commander Vextal's membrane rippled with curiosity. Speak, Junior Analyst. Min Shai's tentacles trembled as she projected her research onto the main display. I've been studying a recently discovered species from a Class 12 death world they call Earth. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Most civilized species evolved on worlds ranging from Class 3 to 5. A Class 12 world was considered virtually uninhabitable. These humans have not only survived but thrived in conditions we consider lethal. Their planet features extreme temperature variations, crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, and aggressive predators. But more importantly, she switched the display to show historical footage of human rescue operations. They've developed extensive experience in saving their own kind from impossible situations. The Council watched in stunned silence as images played across the screen. Humans diving into turbulent oceans, climbing into burning structures, descending into collapsed mines, and venturing into radioactive zones, all without the benefit of advanced technology. Primitives, scoffed Counselor Zinra. You suggest we entrust our most critical operations to a species that hasn't even developed proper environmental standardization. With respect, Counselor, Min Shai countered, her confidence growing. Their primitive methods have succeeded in environments that our most advanced systems cannot handle. They call their rescue personnel first responders, and these individuals routinely risk their lives to save others. It's not just their technology, it's their mindset. They've evolved to solve problems in conditions we consider impossible. Supreme Commander Vextal raised an appendage for silence as another emergency alert pulsed through the chamber. The Proxima Deep Space Research Station was reporting critical failures in their containment systems, over 1,000 lives at risk. Junior Analyst, Vextal's membrane pulsed with decision patterns. Contact your humans. Tell them we have need of their expertise, but warn them of the dangers they'll face. Min Shai's tentacles curled with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Sir, when I mentioned the dangers to their ambassador during my research, they said something I still don't fully understand. They said, where others see impossible dangers, humans see Tuesday. As she left to send the message to Earth, Min Shai couldn't help but wonder if she'd just changed the course of galactic history. The age of human first responders was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The council members watched her go, their various appendages and sensory organs conveying a mixture of skepticism and desperate hope. None of them yet realized that they were about to learn what being from a death world really meant, and why it might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The Proxima Deep Space Research Station hung in the void like a wounded creature, its normally pristine white hull marred by pulsing red warning lights and venting atmosphere. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the approaching rescue vessel Prometheus, watching the scene with practiced eyes. Behind her, her team was doing final equipment checks, the familiar sound of magnetic boots clicking against the deck plates. "Initial readings are worse than we thought," reported Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, the team's environmental specialist. His dark eyes never left his handheld scanner. "Multiple containment breaches in their quantum research sector. The station's artificial gravity is fluctuating between 0 and 3 times Earth normal." Sarah nodded, already mentally mapping out approach vectors. When the call had come from the Galactic Council, her team had been chosen not just for their experience, but for their adaptability. They were about to become humanity's first impression on galactic rescue operations, and she intended to make it count. "Talk to me, people. What are we looking at?" Lieutenant James Cooper, their engineering specialist, pulled up a holographic schematic of the station. Main powers failing. They've got about 1,000 researchers and support staff trapped in various sections. The quantum containment breach is causing localized time dilation effects. Standard alien rescue protocols. He snorted. They take half a day just to calculate the risks. "Those people don't have half a day," Sarah stated firmly. "Kai, how's our suit modifications?" Kai Patel, their technical expert, patted the heavily modified rescue suits lined up against the wall. "Ready to go, Commander. I've adapted them to handle the time dilation effects. They won't be pretty, but they'll work." The ship's comm crackled to life with an alien voice, its artificial translation carrying tones of both hope and skepticism. "Human rescue vessel. This is Council Observer Selvari. We must insist you wait for proper safety calculations before." Sarah cut the transmission with a gesture. "We're going in now. Council can court-martial us later if they want." She turned to her team. "This is what we trained for. These aliens think their station is a death trap. Let's show them what humans from a death world can do." The Prometheus docked with a precision that belied its retrofitted nature. As the airlock cycled, Sarah addressed her team one final time. "Remember, we're not just saving lives today. We're showing the galaxy a new way of doing things. Move fast, think faster, and trust your instincts." They entered the station through a maintenance airlock, their modified suits compensating for the wild gravity fluctuations. The scene that greeted them was chaos by alien standards, but eerily familiar to the human team. Emergency lighting cast crimson shadows through corridors filled with swirling debris. The artificial gravity shifted unpredictably, making every step a calculated risk. "Reminds me of that reactor incident in Jakarta," Kai commented, already working to stabilize a nearby power conduit. "Less talking, more moving," Sarah ordered, though she smiled behind her helmet. "Marcus, get me life sign readings. James, find us a path to the quantum research sector. Kai, keep our route stable behind us." They moved through the station like a well-oiled machine, each team member anticipating the other's needs. When they encountered their first group of trapped researchers, crystalline beings whose environmental suits had failed, Marcus quickly rigged a portable containment field, while James improvised a gravity-neutral corridor for evacuation. The alien observers watching through the station's surviving cameras couldn't believe what they were seeing. The humans moved through lethal conditions with what appeared to be casual disregard for their own safety, yet every movement was precisely calculated. They didn't wait for computer models or risk assessments. They simply solved problems as they encountered them. When they reached the quantum research sector, they found the situation even worse than expected. The containment breach had created pockets of accelerated time, making standard rescue protocols impossible. Sarah assessed the situation in seconds. Kai, can you reverse the polarity of our suit fields to match the temporal distortion? That's crazy, Kai replied, already making the modifications. It might work. The alien observers watched in horror as the humans deliberately entered a time-dilated zone that their sensors claimed would age them years and minutes. But Sarah's intuition proved correct. The modified suits created a temporal bubble that allowed them to operate normally within the distorted space. Over the next 4 hours, the human team did what the galaxy's finest rescue services had deemed impossible. They stabilized the quantum breach, evacuated 300 researchers from critically damaged sections, and jury-rigged emergency systems to keep the station viable until permanent repairs could begin. When they finally returned to their ship, exhausted but successful, they found a message waiting from the Galactic Council. Sarah read it and laughed. "What is it?" Marcus asked, peeling off his suit. "They want to know if this level of performance is standard for human rescue operations." She looked at her team with pride. "I told them no. We were taking it easy since it was our first day." As the Prometheus departed, leaving behind a stable station and 1,000 saved lives, the alien observers began frantically updating their rescue protocols. They didn't yet understand that it wasn't about the protocols. It was about the human ability to adapt, to improvise, and to refuse to accept failure as an option. The galaxy was about to learn that being from a death world didn't just mean surviving against impossible odds. It meant thriving in them. The Galactic Emergency Response Training Center buzzed with an energy that would have been unthinkable just 3 months ago. Where once sterile halls had hosted quiet theoretical discussions about safety protocols, now organized chaos reigned. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck, watching as mixed teams of humans and aliens ran through rescue simulations. "They said it couldn't be done," remarked Council Observer Selvari, their crystalline form refracting the training room's emergency lights. "Many believe different species couldn't effectively work together in crisis situations. The physiological and psychological differences were thought to be insurmountable." Below them, a human instructor named Mike Reynolds was guiding a team through a high-gravity rescue scenario. The team included a gaseous Aetherian contained in a modified pressure suit, 2 crystalline Petrovas, and a multi-limbed Nexan engineer. They moved with growing confidence through the simulation, each species contributing their unique abilities to the challenge. "That's because they were thinking about the differences wrong," Sarah replied, making notes on her tablet. "They're not obstacles, they're advantages. An Aetherian can access spaces that would kill a human. A Petrova can withstand radiation that would melt our suits. A Nexan can manipulate multiple tools simultaneously, combined with human adaptability and quick decision-making." She trailed off as alarms blared through the facility. This wasn't a drill. The distinctive pattern signaled a real emergency. The observation deck's holographic display sprang to life, showing a commercial transport vessel in distress near the Carina Nebula mining sector. Multiple hull breaches, Selvari reported, their crystalline surface rippling with concern. The vessel is carrying 2,000 passengers. And, oh no, what is it? They're transporting a cargo of experimental quantum fuel. If it destabilizes, the observer's form clouded with distress patterns. Sarah was already moving. "Get me teams 3 and 7. They've just completed the mixed environment training program." She activated her comlink. "Mike, bring your training group too. This is what we've been preparing for." "Commander." Selvari's tone carried distinct worry harmonics. "The protocols for quantum fuel incidents require a minimum 12-hour safety assessment before." "Those protocols were written before humans joined the rescue service," Sarah interrupted, already striding toward the launch bay. "We're rewriting them today." Within 15 minutes, 3 rescue ships launched from the training center. Each carried a mixed team of humans and aliens, their differences transformed into strengths through months of intensive training. Sarah commanded the lead vessel, with Mike's team, and the recently graduated trainees following in formation. Listen up, Sarah broadcast to all teams. This is what we've trained for. Every species brings something essential to this mission. Trust your training. Trust each other, and remember, impossible is just another word for hasn't been done yet. As they approached the stricken transport, the scale of the crisis became clear. The ship's hull was riddled with breaches, its structural integrity failing. Quantum fuel containers in the cargo hold were showing signs of destabilization, their energy signatures fluctuating dangerously. Team 3, take the port side breaches, Sarah ordered. 7, focus on passenger evacuation. Mike, your team's with me. We're going to stabilize that quantum fuel. The rescue operation that followed would later be studied as a turning point in galactic emergency response history. The Aetherian rescuers flowed through hull breaches too small for suited humans, sealing them from the inside. Petrova team members handled radiation-flooded sections that would have killed any other species. Nexan engineers worked with inhuman speed and precision to repair critical systems. And the humans? They did what humans do best. They adapted, improvised, and refused to give up. When standard tools failed, they invented new ones. When established procedures proved too slow, they created better ones on the spot. When the quantum fuel began to cascade toward critical failure, Sarah's team rigged an emergency containment field using parts from their own ship's engines. 4 hours later, the transport was stabilized. All 2,000 passengers were safe, the quantum fuel secured, and what should have been a catastrophic loss was transformed into a triumph of interspecies cooperation. Back at the training center, Council Observer Selveri watched the debriefing with growing amazement. You didn't just break protocols, they noted. You completely rewrote them in the middle of a crisis. Sarah shrugged. A gesture the observer had learned meant casual acceptance. Protocols are guidelines, not chains. The universe doesn't read our rulebook. It throws new problems at us every day. We have to be ready to write new rules when the old ones don't work. The observer's crystalline surface rippled with what might have been amusement. Is that the human way? No, Sarah smiled, watching as her mixed species teams celebrated their success together. That's the new way. Human adaptability combined with alien capabilities. We're stronger together than any of us are alone. As she spoke, another alert came in. A distress call from a research station near the galactic core. Without hesitation, humans and aliens moved together toward the launch bay, no longer separated by species or protocol, but united in their mission to save lives. The galaxy was learning that the real power of humanity wasn't just their ability to survive on a death world. It was their ability to teach others how to thrive in impossible situations. And this was just the beginning. The Galactic Emergency Response Council's command center fell silent as the distress signal played across the quantum communications network. The Horizon Deep Research Station, humanity's most ambitious joint project with the galactic community, was in trouble. Deep trouble. Containment failure in the artificial singularity chamber, reported Dr. Elena Santos, the human-alien liaison officer. Her holographic display showed the massive research station slowly being pulled apart by forces that defied conventional physics. 500 researchers trapped inside. The station's safety systems are failing, and the singularity is growing unstable. Commander Sarah Chen studied the data streaming across her neural interface, her expression grim. The Horizon Deep Station had been pushing the boundaries of physics, attempting to harness the power of an artificial quantum singularity. Now that power threatened to tear apart not just the station, but potentially the fabric of space-time itself. How long? She asked. 3 hours before total structural failure, Elena replied. After that, the singularity will begin consuming the station. The gravitational effects are already making conventional approach impossible. Council Observer Selveri's crystalline form pulsed with distress patterns. Even our most advanced rescue ships can't operate in those conditions. The gravitational forces would tear them apart. Sarah turned to her team leaders, human and alien alike. Mike Reynolds, now heading the specialized high-risk unit. Till, the Aetherian void navigation expert. Dr. Zena Pry, the Petrova quantum physicist. Each of them had proven themselves in impossible situations. But this was different. "We need ideas," Sarah announced. The impossible just became mandatory. Till's gaseous form swirled thoughtfully within their containment suit. The Aetherian rescue pods might withstand the gravitational stress longer than conventional vessels, but we'd need a way to counter the temporal distortion effects. "My people can operate in the highest radiation zones," Zena Pry added, her crystalline surface refracting with calculation patterns. "But the gravitational shear would shatter us before we could reach the critical areas." Mike had been unusually quiet, studying the station schematics with intense focus. "What if we don't fight the gravity?" he suddenly proposed. All eyes and sensory organs turned to him. "The singularity wants to pull everything in," he continued, his voice gaining excitement. "Let's use that. We modify the Aetherian pods with Petrova crystal reinforcement, create a slingshot trajectory that uses the gravitational pull to our advantage." "That's insane," Selveri protested. "The calculations alone would take days to." "We don't have days," Sarah cut in. "We have hours. Zena Pry, can your crystals handle this stress if we integrate them into Till's pod designs?" The Petrova scientist's surface rippled with rapid calculations. "Theoretically. But the timing would have to be perfect, a millisecond too long in the gravitational field." "Then we'll be perfect," Sarah stated with characteristic human determination. "Till, get your best pilots. Zena Pry, I need your crystal integration team. Mike, start the modifications. Alina, coordinate with the station. Tell them to hold on. Help is coming." What followed was a blur of activity that showcased everything the human-alien rescue teams had learned from each other. Aetherian engineers worked with impossible speed, their gaseous forms allowing them to modify equipment from the inside out. Petrova crystal shapers grew custom reinforcements that could channel and redirect gravitational forces. Human engineers and technicians brought it all together with their unique brand of innovative problem-solving. 2 hours later, 3 modified rescue pods hung in space at the edge of the singularity's influence. Each was a hybrid of technologies never meant to work together. Aetherian quantum phase drives, Petrova crystal matrices, and human ingenuity. "Remember," Sarah's voice came through the specialized quantum comm, "we ride the gravity wave in, using the crystal matrices to maintain structural integrity. The singularity's pull gives us the speed we need to reach the station before their containment fails completely. We'll have exactly 12 minutes to evacuate everyone before the gravitational forces become unsurvivable." "No pressure," Mike quipped from his pod. "Just another Tuesday, right?" "For humans, perhaps," Till responded, their voice carrying both amusement and nervousness. "For the rest of us, this is still impossibly dangerous." "Then let us show you how humans handle impossible," Sarah replied. "All pods, execute slingshot maneuver on my mark." What followed would be recorded in galactic history as the Horizon Deep miracle. 3 rescue pods, each crewed by a mix of species, rode the edge of a gravitational singularity like surfers on a wave of bent spacetime. They'd reached velocities that should have torn them apart, protected only by the perfect synthesis of alien technology and human determination. The rescue itself was a masterpiece of coordination. Aetherian rescuers phased through damaged sections of the station, creating safe passages. Petrova team members generated crystalline bridges across sections where the artificial gravity had failed completely. Human rescuers coordinated it all, their quick thinking and adaptability turning potential disasters into opportunities. 498 researchers were evacuated in 11 minutes and 43 seconds. The rescue pods broke free of the singularity's pull with 17 seconds to spare before the station collapsed completely. As they watched the research station implode from a safe distance, Council observer Selveri turned to Sarah. "I believe I finally understand something about humans," they said. "When you say impossible, you don't mean cannot be done. You mean hasn't been done yet." Sarah smiled, watching her exhausted but triumphant teams. "Actually, we've learned something too. Some impossible things really can't be done alone, but together." She gestured at the crews celebrating their success, human and alien alike. "Together, we make the impossible routine." The Horizon Deep Rescue marked a new chapter in galactic emergency response. It proved that the combination of human determination and alien capabilities could achieve what neither could do alone. The age of true cooperation had begun, and the galaxy was safer for it. 5 years after the Horizon Deep Rescue, the Galactic Emergency Response Academy's graduation ceremony looked very different from what anyone might have imagined just a few years ago. Commander Sarah Chen, now Director of Integrated Operations, stood at the podium overlooking a sea of faces, human and alien alike. The graduating class represented 23 different species, from crystalline Petrovus to gaseous Etherians, from silicon-based lithoids to the newest addition, a group of methane-breathing cryonians. Each had completed the rigorous new training program that combined the best of all their species' capabilities with humanity's innovative approach to crisis response. "When I first arrived at the Galactic Council," Sarah began, her voice carrying across the assembled graduates, "they called Earth a death world. They couldn't understand how we survived, let alone thrived, in conditions they considered lethal. Today, I want to tell you what being from a death world really means." She gestured to the holographic display behind her, showing scenes from various rescue operations over the past 5 years. It means never accepting that something is impossible just because it hasn't been done before. It means understanding that protocols are guidelines, not chains. Most importantly, it means knowing that our greatest strength lies not in our individual capabilities, but in how we combine them. The display showed footage from their most recent triumph, the evacuation of an entire space colony from the path of a rogue pulsar. Hybrid rescue ships, designed with technology from multiple species, darted through radiation storms that would have destroyed conventional vessels. Teams of different species worked in perfect coordination, each contributing their unique abilities to the mission. 5 years ago, the galaxy saw our differences as obstacles, Sarah continued. Today, we know better. A human's adaptability, combined with an Etherian's ability to phase through solid matter, backed by a Petrovus radiation resistance and a lithoid's indestructibility. These aren't just traits. They're tools in our collective toolkit. From his seat in the front row, Mike Reynolds, now Chief of Training, nodded in agreement. He remembered the early days, when some had doubted that different species could work together effectively in crisis situations. Now his training scenarios deliberately mixed species to maximize their complementary abilities. But the most important lesson, Sarah emphasized, isn't about our physical capabilities. It's about perspective. Humans didn't just bring our Death World adaptations to galactic rescue operations. We brought our Death World mindset. The understanding that in a crisis, the only unacceptable outcome is giving up. She paused, looking out at the graduates. Each of you has learned to think like a Death Worlder, not because you needed to become like humans, but because you needed to unlock that potential within yourselves. Every species faces its own version of a death world. The challenge isn't surviving it. It's learning to thrive in it. The ceremony concluded with a tradition that had started 3 years ago. Each graduate received not just their certification, but a piece of technology or equipment contributed by another species. Humans received Etherian phase modulators. Petrovas got modified human environmental suits. Each gift represented the breaking down of another barrier between species. Later, in her office overlooking the Academy's training grounds, Sarah met with Council Observer Selvari, who had become one of the strongest supporters of the integrated program. The success rates of our rescue operations have increased by 800%. Selvari reported, their crystalline form glowing with satisfaction. More importantly, we're attempting, and succeeding at rescues that would have been considered impossible just a few years ago. Sarah smiled, watching through her window as a mixed team ran through a high-gravity rescue scenario. That's because we stopped seeing impossible as a barrier and started seeing it as a challenge. A very human perspective. Selveri noted. Not anymore. Sarah corrected. Now it's everyone's perspective. That's the real legacy of bringing Deathworlders into galactic rescue operations. We didn't just change how the galaxy handles emergencies. We changed how it thinks about what's possible. As if to emphasize her point, an alert sounded. A distress call from a research vessel caught in a temporal anomaly. Sarah watched with pride as teams of multiple species moved with practiced efficiency toward their ships, no longer divided by their differences, but united by their shared mission. Ready for another impossible day? She asked Selveri. The crystalline being's surface rippled with what had become recognizable as enthusiasm. As your people say, it's just another Tuesday. The legacy of the Deathworlders wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about teaching the galaxy that the impossible was just another problem waiting for a solution, and with each species contributing its unique strengths to the cause, there was no crisis they couldn't face together. As the rescue ships launched into space, their crews representing the incredible diversity of galactic life, but united in purpose, it was clear that the age of true cooperation had arrived. The galaxy had learned that being from a death world wasn't a disadvantage. It was exactly what they all needed to become.